we're in the final stage of tendering processes here, and it is full-blown applications in the realm of industrial monitoring. So in infrastructure monitoring
in Riyadh, right?
yeah, we're talking about here in the kingdom. It's about urban heat, and it's about agriculture, so food security. And just to maybe bring that back to the initial question you had, yes, it's about resilience, but also agriculture is part of resilience. It's part of food security, and it's part of, therefore, well, in the end, also defense.
Yeah.
Right. So all of these things are coming very, very close together.
Yeah, because I was just hearing in another session that 85% of the food from the UAE comes outside of the country.
From the kingdom, you mean?
From the UAE.
For the UAE in this case. So it's like well, it's probably similar here.
Yeah. So we need to change that. Yeah.
Yes, and there's the question about, for example, water security. So in the region here, the water reserves will not last forever. So an estimate is that it will last around next 5, maybe 7 years. And the question is, what now? Then what you do is you heavily rely on either import or desalination. If you rely on desalination, you have critical assets, which if attacked and if out of order, the land will be on its knees, and that is not what you want. So you create single points of vulnerability, and that is something you need to avoid. So there's, I think the kingdom has just, well, not just, but has announced a couple of months ago, a 20 billion fund just to look at food and water security. And that makes sense. It does make strategic sense, because you have thirsty and hungry people. That's not going to be happy people, right? Yeah. So it is looking at, let's say, resilience from all kinds of different angles. But the defense, the security, and also the predominantly civil angle of agriculture, they all belong together.
Now switching gears to something completely different. Where we are here now, we're in Saudi Arabia,
Yes.
and also looking at global applications. In the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you've been doing pilots and been partnering with people here. Your Saudi presentation highlights irrigation efficiencies, desertification monitoring. What have you learned from pilot projects in the kingdom? For example, data integration with local analytics partners, metrics ministries are caring about, like water saved or degrees cooled, which is here obviously an issue in the summer, and potential to scale across regions like NEOM and Figure 4 shows urban cooling insights, city-scale heat mapping, and intervention planning. It shows the results of intervening to make cooling dramatically more efficient.
So on a more general note, people are extremely cooperative here. So they really want to get you here. Not only just that they're obviously all very hospitable, but they are interested in engaging with the technology. They have very open minds.
The first time I was here in 2016, I think, the first FII. They were just very open, supportive as well. There are infrastructure here to support new startups.
And they're not afraid to do experiments and to test. And that is something which I wish we had a little bit more of a mindset in Europe. And then when they execute fast. And also the level of access to decision makers is astounding. So I can just say for the 72 hours, we met so many decision makers at the highest level, which is uncommon, would be very uncommon in Europe, but is very helpful here. So I think they see, so first of all, what I very much appreciate is they have a vision, they know where they're going. They think not just to the next election, as we would in Europe, but they think longer term, and that is something which is extremely helpful to align. And this might change this vision, right? NEOM might become a little smaller, or other things might become a little bigger, but in general, there's a certain way they're moving, and that is something I'm impressed by.
Yeah, I'm honestly astounded by how it's moved between 2016 and today. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
I was here the last time 2 years ago, and even in that short amount of time, it moved quite a bit. So with that in mind, they are looking at short-term challenges, but also looking at long-term challenges. And these long-term challenges are around water and food security. So what we're seeing is not only interest in security and defense, but really long-term visions like, hey, how can we optimize water usage? How can we optimize the living, our urban population, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, that's something I also very, very much value here, is that they look into the long term. They look for really impactful stuff, right?
Exactly.
So moving maybe on to urban heat, return on investment, using Riyadh as an example.
Yes.
How do you quantify the benefits of interventions such as trees, parks, reflective roofs, or shaded corridors? For example, city blocks cooled per dollar invested, energy savings, or public health indicators.
So there's a vast scientific body on the impact of heat on human health. And a subset of that is around human productivity, economic productivity. So there's, for example, an interesting article from the Rockefeller Foundation where they break it down and give you order of magnitude. So every degree in heating per year, per capita, reduces the above a certain threshold, right? So if you go from 2 to 3, probably not. But if you go from 34 to 35, probably yes. And reduces the economic productivity on the global average by around $1,000, right? So this means that economic losses due to urban heat will very likely cross the $1 trillion mark in 2030, 2031.
Wow.
So it is, I would say, not a small problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a massive challenge. So this is just one way to quantify it. And
It's not just here, it's also in Europe as well, right?
yeah. So Europe's actually the most affected continent by global warming. We're way past the 2 degrees already. Like on the global average, we're still at like 1.5, 1.6, but Europe has been racing past the 2 digits earlier. So we should care about that.
Yeah.
Having lived in Australia for some time, I can definitely attest to heat affecting my productivity as a student. Other things affected it too. Yes, I need to confess to that, but heat did play its role. So we played, for example, we worked with a city planner in India, just to give one example, and I think it's public domain. And the city planner built a alternative sustainable city 20 kilometers west of Jaipur in the district of Rajasthan.
Okay.
Beautiful area, very desert.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you could see by just applying, not applying a lot of energy or anything, applying a lot of mental energy, but not applying a lot of, like, let's say, irrigation, under these other techniques, but really sustainable techniques with the resources he had. He built a city which is about 7 degrees cooler than Jaipur, which is only 20 kilometers further. So the city is a lot greener and so on and so forth. So if
You got to appreciate maybe just a bit of geographics. Jaipur is on the edge of a huge desert going west. Yeah,
absolutely. I could say it's
true to Jaisalmer is an incredible place, but yes,
it's also a massive place. It has massive population density. So he lived there, and then at some point wanted to change things, and had the means to change things. And I just can lift my hat to, like, the effort he put in there. But we could scientifically prove that there's this temperature difference. Now, if you multiply this by the population density in the area of Jaipur, the economic effect is astounding. And if you now look at a region like the kingdom, yes, surely they should care. So what we can do is we can look at the energy efficiency on a single building level for every building on the planet. Obviously, that's including the kingdom. So the effect of urban heat islands is massively underestimated in, let's say, the public perception. And it is a problem which will only it will not go away. It will only move in one direction. So we've been very happy to see there's a large interest in the kingdom to solve these things and to solve it the right way. Because just planting trees and trying to look at survival rate of these trees after 5 years is, if it's done by volunteers, around 2%. That is not the solution, right? So you need to have a strategy and implementation plan. And what we're offering is exactly quantifying these mitigation methods.
Great. Now going to the other side of that, which is industrial monitoring, and beyond agriculture and cities, where do you see traction in refineries, district cooling plants, and pipeline integrity monitoring? Where, for example, you got leaks in pipes, which you can detect through anomalies, and you alluded to a bit about flux, about how much throughput goes through the pipes. So you also can measure leaks, even small ones.
Yes.
Figure 5A, date palm health monitor early detection of water stress and productivity loss. This figure shows the data palm monitor. What it shows is thermal data highlighting crop stress, irrigation efficiency, and before and after improvements in water usage and yield. Figure 5b, road infrastructure heat risk. This figure shows preventative maintenance monitoring. It uses temperature patterns to detect early signs of road degradation, overheating segments, and emerging potholes long before they become visible, enabling cities to prioritize repairs and reduce maintenance costs.
So I cannot tell you about the size of the leaks because this is an experiment we need to conduct, but the physics there is very clear what you can do. And I think this has, again, depending who you are as a stakeholder, it has different meaning. So, for example, if you would be the Canadian government and you're looking at pipelines, hypothetically, if you're looking at pipelines in Canada, then there's a legislation which tells the owner of this pipelines you need to fix anything within 48 hours, right? So there's also a question about latency and so on and so forth, right? So, but this is about not having whatever's in those pipelines go into the soil. So that is one thing.
So environmental
impact, exactly. But you can also see it from a different perspective. You might be I heard there are some companies dealing with oil, also in the kingdom, and you might want to be one of these companies, and you can have sensors for your own pipelines, but maybe you're interested of how much is going through other pipelines which you don't own or don't operate. Right. So there's also the idea of market intelligence there. So this is interesting. And also if you're trading, right, this could be interesting.
Yeah.
And it's the same for, let's say, all these parts of what I would claim critical industrial infrastructure. Yes, it could be energy grids, but it could also be data centers. If we look at the energy which is going to data centers, that is very interesting. Then a lot of the industrial sites which are semi-critical are unmanned. There's no one there.
Yeah.
So how do you have, we had discussions here with companies which have literally thousands of assets across the globe. How do you manage all of those? And often the answer is, well, we call someone and says, hey, Frank, can you just go there? There's something seems off. Like, can you have a look? And then Frank goes and comes like, all good. Oh, okay, thank you. And then fine, right? Yeah. It's still on the level. You try to fly drones and so on. But then the question is, if you fly a drone and now suddenly you fly at a different time of day, or it's slightly higher or slightly lower, so how do you compare these measurements again? So how do you create a consistent trace of uniform intelligence about this?
Yeah.
And the answer is, it's tough. You can't. If you have a system which is doing the same measurements all around the globe, it makes things a lot easier. And this is usually the angle where we see that there's conviction of those people, then using respective assets from space.
Good. Okay, great.